Long before empires rose and fell, before kings and conquerors ruled the earth, there lived a man whose journey would change the destiny of nations. His name was Abraham. He was not born into greatness, nor was he a warrior or a king. Instead, Abraham was a man called by God to leave everything behind his land, his family, and his traditions to follow a promise unseen. His story is not just history, it is a testimony of faith, struggle, obedience, and hope. And today, we will walk through his entire life, step by step, uncovering the lessons that echo through time, lessons that still speak to us thousands of years later. This is the story of Abraham, the father of faith. Our journey begins in the ancient city of Ur, located in Mesopotamia, one of the earliest centers of civilization. Ur was a place of wealth, trade, and idolatry. Its people worshipped many gods, carved into stone and clay. Abraham, originally named Abram, was born into this culture of polytheism. His father Terah raised him in a household where idols were common. Yet, in the midst of all this, Abram would one day hear a voice unlike any other. A voice that was not like the lifeless idols around him. It was the voice of the living God. Abram married Sarai, later known as Sarah, and for many years they lived in Haran, carrying the traditions of their ancestors. They were wealthy by the standards of the time, with flocks, herds, and servants. But despite this, Abram's life was about to be interrupted by a divine call that would set history in motion. One day, the Lord spoke to Abram. In Genesis 12, God's words are recorded. "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." This was no small request. God was asking Abram to leave behind everything familiar, his homeland, security, his culture, for an unknown destination. But with the command came a promise. God promised Abram land, descendants, and that through him all nations would be blessed. So, at the age of 75, Abram obeyed, gathered Sarai, his nephew Lot, his possessions, and his servants, and began the long journey toward Canaan. Imagine the courage it took to leave everything you know at that age. No maps, no certainty, only the voice of God and a promise. When Abram arrived in Canaan, God appeared to him again and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." Abram built an altar there, worshiping the Lord. But soon a severe famine struck the land. Instead of thriving in the promised land, Abram found himself forced to go down to Egypt for survival. Here, Abram faced his first great test of faith. Fearing that the Egyptians would kill him to take Sarai, who was beautiful, he asked her to say she was his sister. Pharaoh took Sarai into his palace, but God intervened, sending plagues on Pharaoh's household. Pharaoh discovered the truth and rebuked Abram, sending him away with his wife and possessions. This moment shows us a truth about Abraham. Though a man of great faith, he was still human, capable of fear and mistakes. Yet God remained faithful, protecting his promise. Back in Canaan, Abram's herds and Lot's herds grew so large that the land could not support them both. Their herdsmen quarreled, and Abram made a choice that revealed his character. He said to Lot, "Let's not have any quarreling between you and me. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left." Lot chose the fertile plains of the Jordan. the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, while Abram remained in the hill country. Though Lot's choice looked better, it would eventually lead to disaster. Meanwhile, God reaffirmed his promise to Abram, telling him to look in every direction. The land would belong to his descendants forever. Abram built another altar, again honoring the Lord who had called him. In time, Lot settled near Sodom, a city notorious for its wickedness. Soon, war broke out in the region. A coalition of 4 powerful kings invaded, defeating the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and taking Lot captive along with all his possessions. When Abram heard that his nephew had been taken, he did not hesitate. With just 318 trained men born in his household, Abram pursued the armies across great distances. By night, Abram launched a surprise attack, rescuing Lot, his family, and all the goods. This victory was not only military but spiritual. On his return, Abram encountered Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of the Most High God. Melchizedek blessed Abram, and Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. This mysterious figure, Melchizedek, foreshadowed a greater priesthood to come, one that would not be based on lineage, but on eternal authority. Abram's trust in God grew stronger. He refused the spoils of war from the king of Sodom, saying, "I will accept nothing belonging to you. So you will never be able to say, 'I made Abram rich.'" Abram wanted it known that his blessings came from God alone. Despite victories, Abram still struggled with doubt. He and Sarai remained childless, and time was slipping away. How could God's promise of descendants come true with no heir? In Genesis 15, God spoke to Abram in a vision, "Do not be afraid. Abram, I am your shield, your very great reward." But Abram asked, "O sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless?" God answered, "Look up at the heavens and count the stars. Indeed, you can count them. So shall your offspring be." The Bible says Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. That night, God made a covenant with Abram, instructing him to prepare a sacrifice. In a vision, Abram saw a smoking fire pot and blazing torch pass between the pieces of the sacrifice, a sign of God binding himself to the promise. God assured Abram that his descendants would inherit the land. Though not without trials, they would be enslaved in a foreign land for 400 years, before returning with great possessions. This covenant was not just a promise, it was the foundation of God's plan for his people, sealed by his own word. Years passed and still no child. Sarai, weary of waiting, proposed a desperate solution. She gave her servant Hagar to Abram, so that through her they might obtain a child. Abram agreed, and Hagar bore a son named Ishmael. But this plan, born of impatience, brought pain and division. Sarai grew jealous, and Hagar suffered mistreatment. Yet even in this, God showed compassion. He appeared to Hagar in the wilderness, telling her to return and promising that her son would also become the father of a great nation. Ishmael was born, but he was not the child of the promise. God's covenant would be fulfilled in a miraculous way. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared again and reaffirmed his promise. God changed Abram's name to Abraham, meaning father of many nations, and Sarai's name to Sarah. The covenant was sealed with a sign circumcision. Every male in Abraham's household, including servants, was circumcised as a mark of belonging to God's chosen people. Then came the astonishing promise. Sarah herself, though barren and old, would bear a son. Abraham laughed at the thought of 100-year-old man and a 90-year-old woman having a child. But God declared, "Your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac." This moment showed that God's power was not limited by human weakness or impossibility. One hot afternoon, as Abraham sat at the entrance of his tent, he looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. Recognizing something divine about them, Abraham hurried to welcome them, offering food, water, and rest. As they ate, one of them said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Sarah, listening from the tent, laughed to herself. She thought, "After I am worn out and my master is old, will I now have this pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son." This encounter revealed both the kindness of Abraham and the absolute certainty of God's promise. After the visit of the 3 strangers, the Lord revealed his plan to Abraham. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah had become so wicked that judgment was coming. Abraham, knowing that his nephew Lot lived there, pleaded with God, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city?" God replied, "If I find 50 righteous people, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Abraham pressed further, lowering the number: 45, 40, 30, 20, even 10. Each time God agreed. If only 10 righteous people were found, he would spare the city. But in the end, even 10 could not be found. 2 angels went to Sodom and warned Lot to flee with his family. As dawn broke, fire and sulfur rained from the heavens, destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot's wife, looking back longingly, turned into a pillar of salt. This tragic event reminds us of God's justice, but also of Abraham's compassion and intercession. He stood in the gap, pleading for mercy. It shows us the heart of a man who walked closely with God. True to his word, the Lord visited Sarah, and she conceived. Against all odds, at the appointed time, Sarah bore a son to Abraham in his old age. He named him Isaac, which means he laughs, for Sarah had laughed when she first heard the promise, and now her laughter was one of joy. The birth of Isaac was not just the fulfillment of a promise, it was the turning point in salvation history. From Isaac would come Jacob, and from Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel. But the joy of Isaac's birth also brought tension. Ishmael, the son of Hagar, mocked Isaac, and Sarah demanded that Abraham send Hagar and Ishmael away. Though distressed, Abraham obeyed God's instruction, and Hagar and Ishmael left. Yet God did not abandon them. He promised to make Ishmael into a great nation as well. Still, Isaac was the child of the covenant, the one through whom God's plan would unfold. Then came the greatest test of Abraham's life. God said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." The words must have pierced Abraham's heart. Isaac was the promised child, the hope of the covenant. Yet Abraham obeyed. Early the next morning he took Isaac and 2 servants and set out. For 3 days they traveled. On the 3rd day Abraham saw the mountain. He told the servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We'll worship, and then we will come back to you." Isaac carried the wood, and Abraham carried the fire and knife. Isaac asked, "Father, the fire and wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb. On the mountain, Abraham built an altar, arranged the wood out, and bound his son Isaac, laying him on the altar. As he reached for the knife to slay his son, the angel of the Lord called out, Abraham, Abraham. Do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in a thicket. He sacrificed the ram instead of his son. This powerful moment, known as the binding of Isaac, foreshadowed the ultimate sacrifice that God himself would one day make through his own son. It was a demonstration of faith so great that it became the model for all who trust in God. After many years, Sarah died at the age of 127. Abraham mourned deeply and sought a burial place for her. He negotiated with the Hittites and purchased the cave of Machpelah near Mamre. This became the family tomb of Abraham. Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah. Abraham ensured that Isaac would marry from among his own people, sending his servant back to his relatives. There Rebekah was chosen by God's providence to be Isaac's wife. In his later years, Abraham remarried and had other children, but Isaac remained the heir of the promise. Finally, at the age of 175, Abraham died, and he was buried beside Sarah in the cave of Machpelah. The man who left his homeland with nothing but faith had become the father of nations, remembered forever as the friend of God. The story of Abraham does not end with his death. His legacy lives on in three of the world's great faiths: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. He is honored as the father of faith, the man who trusted God when everything seemed impossible. Abraham's journey teaches us many lessons. Faith requires obedience, even when the path is unclear. God's promises may take time, but they never fail. Human weakness and mistakes cannot cancel divine purpose. True faith is tested, and in testing it grows stronger. Through Abraham we learn what it means to walk by faith and not by sight. He was far from perfect, but he believed God, and that was counted to him as righteousness. And today, thousands of years later, his story continues to inspire all who seek to trust God with their lives. Abraham's life was a journey of faith, sometimes stumbling, sometimes soaring, but always moving forward toward the promise. From Ur to Canaan, from doubt to covenant, from Ishmael to Isaac, from fear to ultimate surrender, Abraham's story reveals the heart of a God who calls, who promises, who tests, and who provides. The question is, what is God calling you to trust him with today? What promise are you holding on to even when it feels delayed? May the story of Abraham inspire us all to walk by faith, to trust in God's timing, and to believe that nothing is too hard for the Lord.